Despicable Me sold you a kids movie. What you actually got was pure chaos, start to finish. These are the most unhinged characters in Despicable Me history, and number 10 will make you rewatch everything. Number 10. Miss Hattie. She is on screen for roughly 3 minutes in the first Despicable Me, and she still managed to become one of the most quietly disturbing characters in the entire franchise. Miss Hattie runs Miss Hattie's Home for Girls, a bright pastel orphanage covered in cheerful wallpaper and happy little decorations. Underneath all of that, she is running what is essentially a cookie sweatshop. The girls get sent out into the neighborhood every single day to sell boxes of cookies door to door, and the money goes straight to her. Here is where it gets strange. If a girl fails to hit her cookie quota, she does not get grounded. She gets put in the box of shame, an actual cardboard box sitting in Miss Hattie's office with a child inside it, and she keeps spare boxes on hand in case more than one girl underperforms on the same day. There is even a strip of black and yellow caution tape on the floor that the girls have to stand behind while they report their sales figures, like they are approaching a hazardous chemical spill rather than a woman in a pink cardigan. When Edith hands her a mud pie as a gift, Miss Hattie calmly tells her she is never going to get adopted. Kristen Wiig voices her with this sugary, sing-song sweetness that somehow makes the whole thing worse. And the best part? She faces no consequences whatsoever. Gru insults her in Spanish, telling her she has the face of a donkey. She takes it as a compliment, buys a Spanish dictionary, looks it up, comes back and slaps him across the face with the book. Then she disappears from the franchise forever. Number 9. Poppy Prescott, by Despicable Me 4, Gru and his family have been shoved into witness protection in a manicured suburb called Mayflower. Gru is now Chet Cunningham, a solar panel salesman with a terrible fake smile and a house squeezed between 2 mansions. It is a solid disguise. It lasts about a day, because the girl next door recognizes him immediately. Poppy Prescott, voiced by Joey King, is a teenager with braces, a pink vest, and an unshakable belief that she is destined for supervillainy. She has a cat named Renfield. She spends her free time playing dance arcade games in her treehouse. She also has zero hesitation about blackmailing a retired criminal mastermind who could, in theory, freeze her solid. Her demand? Help her break into Lycée Pas Bon, an elite school of villainy, and steal the school mascot. Not money, not weapons, not anything you would expect a criminal to want. A honey badger named Lenny. Poppy's theory is that stealing Lenny will impress the admissions board enough to get her enrolled. So a grown man with a criminal record spends his evening crawling through a boarding school with a tranquilizer syringe, chasing an actual honey badger, while a 14-year-old directs him. He tries to sedate Lenny, drops the syringe, and then sits on it. They get the badger. Poppy trips the alarm on the way out. They escape by stealing the principal's antique flying car. And here is the part nobody sees coming. Lenny has a tracking chip implanted in him. Poppy's little admission stunt is what leads the film's actual villain straight to Gru's family. She commits a crime out of pure ambition and accidentally triggers the entire third act. Number 8. Doctor Nefario. Every villain needs a gadget guy. Gru's gadget guy has genuinely terrible hearing and absolutely refuses to let that slow him down. Gru asks Nefario for cookie robots. Nefario builds boogie robots. Gru asks for a dart gun. Nefario delivers a fart gun. And it is not a one-off prototype either. He goes on to produce 7 copies of the fart gun. When he eventually leaves Gru's employment, the minions send him off with a 21 fart gun salute, which is somehow the most dignified funeral in the entire franchise. But the misheard inventions are the harmless part. In the first film, Nefario decides on his own that the 3 girls are a distraction from the moon heist. So he secretly phones the orphanage behind Gru's back and arranges to have all 3 children shipped back. Then he tells Gru he did it for his own good. That is not a lab assistant. That is a man staging an intervention with a telephone. Then in Despicable Me 2, he quits, telling Gru he misses being evil. And the very same night, a silhouette appears at Gru's door and abducts a minion. Nefario has not simply changed jobs. He has joined El Macho and personally kidnapped his own former co-workers so they can be mutated into monsters. Then he flips back again. He builds the antidote that cures every mutated minion and saves Gru's life. His reasoning is that he is perfectly happy to build an army capable of ending civilization, but nobody touches his family. And in Despicable Me 3, he is frozen in carbonite hanging on a wall in the lair, apparently because of a minion accident. Number 7. Vector. Victor Perkins, who goes by Vector, is a young man in an orange tracksuit who becomes deeply offended if you call it pajamas. He lives in a white fortress full of gadgets, watches marine documentaries alone at night, and keeps a fully grown great white shark in a tank in his living room. Not a decoration, a real one, which later attacks him. His weapons are aquatic. He invents a piranha gun, and during his very first demonstration of it, the piranha bites him. He builds a squid launcher that fires live squid at people. His father runs the Bank of Evil, which is where Vector's entire personality actually comes from. Every crime he commits is a bid for his dad's approval, and his signature crime is genuinely brilliant. He steals the Great Pyramid of Giza. Then, because he does not want anyone to notice immediately, he replaces it with an inflatable replica and hides the real one behind his house, painted to blend into the sky. It works well enough that the entire villain community declares every other criminal on Earth lame by comparison. Then the wheels come off. He kidnaps 3 little girls to force Gru into handing over the shrunken moon. Gru actually complies. He hands over the moon. And Vector, holding the moon in his hands, decides he is going to hang on to the kids a little longer anyway, purely out of spite, before firing missiles at Gru on his way out. His reward for all of this is being stranded on the surface of the moon, alone, in a helmet. The last thing we see him do is dance up there. Number 6. Bell Bottom and the Vicious Six. In 1976, the most feared criminal organization on the planet is a group of 5 adults with pun-based names and an unbelievable amount of confidence. There is Jean Claude, who replaced his arm with a giant mechanical lobster claw. Nunchuck, a nun who fights with nunchucks. Svengeance, a Swedish roller skating champion with extending limbs. Stronghold, a wall of muscle in metal gauntlets. And leading them, Bell Bottom. Bell earns her position by throwing the group's founder out of a plane. Wild Knuckles has just finished retrieving the Zodiac Stone from a booby-trapped temple, fighting off an army of metal guardians to do it. Bell pulls him halfway to safety, informs him that honor among thieves is a myth, and drops him. Then the team never finds a 6th member, which means for the entire film, the Vicious Six is 5 people who refuse to update the name. And Wild Knuckles is not exactly the moral center here either. He survives, kidnaps an 11-year-old boy for ransom, and tortures him using a giant record player rigged with a spinning blade, set to disco, while explaining that if the disco does not finish him, the blade will. He also keeps crocodiles in his home, which nearly eat him. Then Chinese New Year arrives and the Vicious Six finally use the Zodiac Stone. Bell becomes a fire-breathing dragon. Nunchuck becomes a giant cobra that keeps her glasses on. Stronghold becomes an ox, Svengeance a tiger, Jean Claude a monkey that somehow keeps the robotic claw. Bell eats a minion whole and torches her former mentor. Gru ends the fight by turning all 5 of them into rats. Number 5. The Minions, we treat them as background comedy, but the opening of the 2015 Minions film lays out one of the darkest origin stories in modern animation, narrated in the most cheerful voice imaginable. Minions have existed since the beginning of time. They evolved from single-celled organisms with exactly one purpose, which is to serve the most despicable master they can find. The problem is they are extraordinarily bad at it. They served a Tyrannosaurus Rex and rolled him into a volcano. They served a caveman and got him eaten by a bear. They served a pharaoh and crushed him under his own pyramid. They served Count Dracula and exposed him to sunlight during his birthday party. Then they fired a cannon at Napoleon. That is 5 masters killed by accident. So they retreat to a cave in the Arctic and slowly sink into a collective depression, because they have nobody left to grovel, for the chaos does not stop once they find Gru either. Bob Crash lands on the Sword in the Stone during a police chase, pulls Excalibur out without effort, and is immediately crowned King of the United Kingdom. Queen Elizabeth is removed from the throne by a minion, holding a teddy bear. Then there is Otto, introduced in Minions. The Rise of Gru. He is handed a priceless ancient artifact capable of transforming people into zodiac animals, wanders into a child's birthday party, sees a pet rock with googly eyes, and trades the artifact for the rock. Instantly, no hesitation, and in Despicable Me 4, 5 minions get injected with a super serum and become the Mega Minions. Dave gets super strength, Tim stretches, Gus flies, Jerry turns into a boulder, and Mel fires a laser from his single eye. Within days, the program is shut down because they cause more damage than the villains. If you are enjoying this countdown, hit subscribe. We break down animated franchises like this every week. Alright, so this is where the ranking stops being funny and starts being genuinely concerning. Number 4. Scarlet Overkill. Sandra Bullock voices the world's first female supervillain, and her introduction at VillainCon in 1968 sets the tone perfectly. She appears as a giant shadow behind a curtain, then blasts out through the wall using a red dress that converts into a rocket. Her husband Herb, voiced by John Hamm, built the dress, and it is fitted with weapons. Her hiring process is exactly as unstable as she is. She tosses a ruby into a crowd of villains and announces that whoever takes it from her gets the job. Then she fights an entire convention hall of criminals for it. Once Kevin, Stewart, and Bob are hired, she gives them a job that a rational person would call impossible: steal the crown off the head of Queen Elizabeth II. And when the minions look nervous, she tucks them into bed and tells them a bedtime story about 3 little pigs who went to work for a big bad wolf, did something stupid, and got blown off the face of the earth. That is her management style. a children's fairy tale reworked into a death threat delivered at bedtime in a soothing voice. Her actual goal is not money or power in any abstract sense. She wants to be crowned Queen of England. Specifically, that is the ambition. So when Bob accidentally pulls Excalibur and takes the throne instead, she considers it personal betrayal, locks all 3 minions in a dungeon, and hands them to Herb for torture. Later she chases a 50-foot minion through London while firing lava lamp guns at him. She loses everything, gets frozen solid by a child version of Gru, and the last thing that happens to her is Bob handing her a tiny toy crown out of pity. Number 3. Maxime Le Mal. Will Ferrell voices the villain of Despicable Me 4, a Frenchman who calls himself the Cockroach Man, and his entire criminal career traces back to one incident. In 9th grade, at a talent show at Lycée Pas-Bon, Maxime had rehearsed a song for weeks. Gru went on stage before him and performed the same number first. That is it. That is the origin. A teenager lost a talent show, and instead of processing it, he built a life around revenge. And he did not just hold a grudge. He went and spliced his own DNA with cockroach DNA to give himself enhanced strength. Then he announced it on stage during his acceptance speech at a school reunion in front of every villain he has ever known, transforming in real time as a flex. He gets arrested roughly 90 seconds later. His girlfriend Valentina, voiced by Sofia Vergara, breaks him out of prison, and the two of them go hunting for Gru in a colossal airship shaped like a cockroach, crewed by an army of genetically engineered intelligent cockroaches wearing tiny military helmets. At one point, the airship simply runs out of fuel mid-mission, which is a beautifully mundane problem for a doomsday operation. Then his plan escalates past anything else in the franchise. He kidnaps Gru's infant son, uses the same technology that transformed himself to turn the baby into a human cockroach hybrid, and brainwashes him into attacking his own father for a talent show from decades earlier. And then at the very end, he becomes the first main villain in Despicable Me history to actually make peace with Gru by singing a duet with him. Number 2. El Macho. Eduardo Perez, voiced by Benjamin Bratt, is introduced in Despicable Me 2 as a friendly restaurant owner in a shopping mall. 20 years earlier, he was the most feared criminal in Mexico, and the film shows you exactly why in one uninterrupted sequence. He walks into a bar. He knocks out the bartender. He pours tequila, squeezes venom from a live snake directly into the glass, drinks it, and then eats the glass. He pays by pinning the money to the table with the snake. Then he walks through the wall instead of using the door, hijacks an armored security truck, and punches the drivers out. That is his warm-up. His retirement is the truly unhinged part. He decides he needs to disappear, and rather than simply moving somewhere quiet, he strapped 250 pounds of dynamite to his chest, mounted a live shark, and rode it into the mouth of an active volcano. It worked. The world believed he was dead for 2 decades. He then opened a salsa restaurant. When he returns, he steals a top-secret Arctic laboratory, not the chemical inside it. The entire building lifted out of the ice using a giant magnet aircraft to obtain a mutagen called the PX-41 serum. He then has the minions kidnapped and mutated into purple, indestructible, mindless killing machines, with the plan of loading them into rockets and firing them at cities around the world. He keeps a pet chicken called El Polito trained as an attack animal. He attempts to launch a woman into the same volcano he faked his own death in, and when he loses, he drinks the mutagen himself and turns into a purple monster. He is defeated by a lipstick taser and a fart gun. Number 1. Balthazar Bratt. Trey Parker voices a man who has not psychologically left the year 1987, and the tragedy underneath the comedy is what earns him the top spot. In 1985, Balthazar Bratt was the biggest child star in America, headlining a live-action show called Evil Brat in which his character robbed banks, defeated armies, and destroyed cities. Then, during the 3rd season, he hit puberty. His voice cracked. He got braces and acne. The network canceled the show in 1987 without ever airing the final episode. He never recovered. Not emotionally, not aesthetically, not in any measurable way. Decades later, he is still wearing the purple jumpsuit, the shoulder pads, and the parachute pants. Still has the mullet and the handlebar mustache. Still travels with a guitar-playing robot sidekick named Clive. His references stop dead at the 80s, and he commits crimes exclusively while 80s music plays and he dances. His weapon is bubblegum. He chews it, and it hardens into an indestructible material he can use for traps, cannons, and restraints. He also carries a Rubik's Cube that functions as a smoke bomb. To recover a stolen diamond, he disguises himself as an enormous jewel inspector named Monsieur Pompeau, tranquilizes every witness in the room, and escapes on a grappling hook. Then he builds a giant robot, copied from an actual episode of his own canceled TV show, and walks it into Hollywood. His plan is to coat the entire town in gum and float it into outer space. There is no payday attached and no power grab hiding underneath it. This is revenge on the industry that canceled him as a child. Gru beats him by challenging him to a dance fight, because that is the only language Bratt still speaks. He is the only main villain in the franchise whose plan has nothing to do with Gru or the minions at all. His grudge is entirely with a television network, and when he shows up again in Despicable Me 4, still incarcerated, Clive is gone. Here's what makes this franchise smarter than it gets credit for. Almost every villain on this list is defined by one specific wound they never dealt with. Vector wanted his father proud of him. Bratt wanted his show back. Maxime wanted a talent show trophy. El Macho wanted the fear he commanded in his 20s. Scarlet wanted a crown she was told she would never get. The gum cannons and cockroach airships are just what those feelings look like when you give someone unlimited engineering budget and no supervision. Which one do you think deserved the top spot? Drop your ranking in the comments. And if you want more animated franchise deep dives, there is another one waiting on screen right now.